history of human occupation that reaches back probably 6,000 years and includes the last historic battle of the Civil War. And since then, the Delta has provided wood, water, transportation, and wastewater assimilation for a variety of timber, textile, chemical, and paper interests. It also provides recreation for generations of hunters and fishermen. The Delta protects us from flood control and stormwater retention for much of the metro.
Some structures like Mobile Bay, the Mississippi River, all of these as permanent fixtures, unchanging. And I know with your backgrounds, less so with this group, but even I'm guilty of it too. I think it's always been here. It has. Great example on the wall behind us here. They start talking about the transition through time, fluctuations, transgression, regression cycles with ocean, all stuff we know. Here's an actual application for this. Seeing the creation of Mobile Bay, seeing the creation of Dauphin Island. You're going to have a very similar set of pictures to this around the next corner, but it's a function of where is sea level at, what kind of topography did you have going in before sea level rose, and why is some portion flooded versus not others, and where your drainage basins reorganize when you change that sea level point. So as we walk through this information, as we get out there on Mobile Bay, well, we're going to be on Weeks Bay, just off Mobile Bay, understand that geologically speaking, these are young. These have not been here all that long. 15,000 years, that's not much. It's since the last ice age. 11,000 years ago was the end of the last ice, give or take. But that's a pretty quick turnaround to us, again, what seems like this immovable structure that's been here forever. So we're going to stop here. We're going to have a few more points that I've picked out. We're going to finish with Nancy talking about modern day tragedy over there. But with the creation of the bay, you're obviously going to have sands at a coastline. It's a high energy environment. You're going to wash out a lot of those clays and some of the silts. And the end result is you get a deposition of sand. You also hit base level at sea level. That energy drops. Whatever's coming out of those rivers deposits, those deltas start to build, barrier islands form, depends on what kind of shifts and currents you've got. So as we go through this, look at where the coastline was 5 million years ago. That's kind of an impressive number. Okay, there's no numbers. Kind of an impressive figure. You realize there would be a whole lot more, southern U.S. anyway, with the idea that sea levels have risen. It's cool. It's all fine, but taking it down to a smaller scale, taking it down to an island level rather than a continent level. Here we're starting to see some gradations, some processes that we had the sediment already here. We had the resources to make this work, to build it. So as sea level rises through time, you're going to lose the swamp. It's going to move uphill. The forests that were established are going to start to retreat further back as you get more and more of a saltwater, high energy environment. And over time, that water keeps rising and you keep stepping things back in the natural progression. We're all familiar with our basic geology here, Walther's Law and the sequence sedimentation and deposition and all that. As we get here, all of that material is still present. It's okay to keep eroding sand out here, and keep eroding other soils and materials. The sands are just the heaviest ones that arise. Eventually, sandbars are going to start to form, functions in the wave action and the currents. You build up through time. Eventually, you get these barrier islands. They are far from permanent. So, good example down here, right in front of you. Picture on this side especially, they talk about ever-changing coastlines of Dauphin Island. This was a really good piece. It's easy to miss, it's easy to walk right by, but actual photos, you can see the sands and the sediment screaming off of it. You can see changes in the island morphology and shape. Remember, everything here, everything we're sitting on is at the whim of Mother Nature and the way that those changes in the currents are going to affect the deposition, and especially storms and storm surge. They wreak havoc on barrier islands in general. So yes, they're launching force. They keep some of that storm surge from hitting the primary coastline, the mainland, but they take that energy and it can do work on it. So.
Not know that shrimp come in, mature, and then go out to lay eggs. I thought it was reversed.
All right, so it's not completely unique to Mobile Bay, but it happens here as frequently as anywhere I've ever heard of it in the world. They call it locally a jubilee. In the right conditions, with the right wind patterns and the high enough temperatures and a large oxygen demand in the area, you can get low oxygen waters that roll through, and this will actually force the aquatic creatures who are needing oxygen in search of it. They'll come up onto land. So the sea creatures will empty out, spilling forth on the beaches. So crabs, eels, fish, they're all coming out and jumping up on the land. Well, the compassionate humans being that we are, come through with 5-gallon buckets and dump and go. It's a massive loads of seafood hauls. This frequently happens in the middle of the night, just the way that the dynamics happen. So I've talked to people who are locals around here, and they said, oh yeah, we've modernized. It used to be everyone called each other. Now everyone's got a giant group text message where all they'll send is Jubilee. Everyone takes off out the doors and goes to gather up all the sea creatures that they can. But it takes a unique set of circumstances. It takes that somewhat shallow bay. It takes a high heat environment. It takes the right wind conditions. You can see the exact definitions here, but if you take low oxygen bottom water, it's moving up to the shore, takes the right kind of wind, and pretty much you essentially start to suffocate portions of the bay. You drop the oxygen level content enough that it'll migrate these creatures up and out. So, little foreshadowing here, one of the projects that you're going to be working on, one of the options for a project is going to be related to this. So you may want to take time and read a little bit on this. But these are some of the unique features, both geologically speaking and the fallout from this. So last one we're going to talk about is much more man-made. We are going to get into the Deepwater Horizon. There's a good figure over here. Nancy's going to tell us all about that. So.
Wasn't meant to be short, so I can't go long. So let me know if I'm going over time. So general introduction. What happened? It happened on April 20th, 2010, when the, don't know if I pronounced it right, Macondo well, which is a Deepwater Horizon well located 50 miles off the shore of Louisiana, suddenly exploded. So it killed in total 11 rig workers and profuse leaking of about 210 million gallons of oil into the Gulf. So it took in total about, I think it was like 87 days total until they finally fixed the situation. But it really was the company or BP trying to find ways how to fix it and constantly failing for several days in a row until the US government stepped in and did a whole investigation to figure out what exactly was going on. There were so many finger pointings at each other and no one wanted to take the blame of it. But ultimately at the end, have an overview here, the who, where, why, and how. So what happened is BP, Transocean, and Halliburton. So they're a combination of the well designer, the concrete maker, and then the insurance company, basically, it's a combination. So after the explosion, it really took them about 87 days until they finally decided that the well was considered like not leaking enough to be considered a dead. And their final decision of what happened was that the cement base at the very, very bottom cracked, and even though it was reported several months beforehand, no one bothered to fix it. So they kept on using it, and then eventually it gave way and then gold and burst open. Just the dangerous properties of oil. It is toxic, flammable, and carcinogenic, and very persistent. It's extremely hard to clean out. The oil spilled for about 92,500 miles off the shore, and due to sun exposure, it did oxidize, and that's what gives it the really bright red, orangey color. So how did it happen? It's a fusion of poor management, equipment breakdowns, and at even one point, BP tried to blame it on natural disasters, saying that it was a methane gas bubble that somehow leaked up and ruined their material, and that's why it caused it. But at the end, the ultimate verdict was systematic management failure, where they had workers share like testimonies of what happened. One saying that they've actually turned off the danger alarms in hopes to help the workers sleep better when they work on the rig. And so when the dangers actually happened, none of the alarms ever went off, therefore no one ever knew there was a problem. So that was one situation. There was a lot of also monetary cutbacks, refusing to fix things that were broken. That kind of led to the bigger problem. And then a lot of finger pointing at each other of like, who was the main cause? So, got a little quote there from President Obama at the time, how he just did not approve the constant finger pointing at each other and no one was taking the blame. At the end, the fines amounted to one of the biggest record-setting settlements they've recorded in history of $5.5 billion and an additional $8.8 billion in natural resource damage.
I know that I was telling those guys earlier when I swam with these things down, the Grand came and they would give you squid to let them suck them out of your hands. They got two big, it's not bone, but it's cartilage plates. And they clamp them together.
Some of those are carved in there.
Grind. It's like two pieces of sandpaper.
Yeah. So when I was down doing some research in one of the rivers of Florida, one of my greatest regrets in life came with a horseshoe crab, which had died, I don't know how. But the entire skeleton was made clean. It was like perfectly preserved right there. We were out busy. I didn't have time to saw it, but I looked at it.
Do you see them?
I really wish I picked that up. That would have been so cool to put up on in the classroom.
Yeah.
It's coming around. There's a hammerhead shark.
I mean, I think I should have done something.
Hey, buddy.
You snag him?
I'm not grabbing, I'm just touching you. It says you can touch with 2 fingers.
Yeah.
He's slimy.
You can touch a slime.